If I'm going to talk about Kingdom Keepers 4 with the level of respect and dedication with which it was intended to be talked about, I'm going to need my wits about me. Ah, yes, I feel my wits now. Salutations, I'm Becca, this is Words Never Malarkey, and yes, I am drinking a White Claw while talking about this book. There's no other way to talk about it, because Kingdom Keepers 4 made me question my reality. Might be too soon to pull that one as like my tagline, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Kingdom Keepers 4 made me question everything. And you know what most of the reason why is? It's because it wasn't half bad. Okay, it was bad, and we're talking about Kingdom Keepers here, so of course the standard, the bar is like way down here. So comparatively, it wasn't half bad. I think what made it not half bad was that this one was actually entertaining. And that was a surprising part. I actually felt like there was honest to God forward momentum in this book. The last two, it was like a bunch of scenes put together that just kind of eventually concluded. This one actually kind of had the semblance of a plot and kind of had actual compelling antagonists. So we're going to talk about Kingdom Keepers 4 and why it is slightly less chaotic than its predecessors, but it is still chaotic. Therefore, this video is going to be chaotic. I'm drinking White Claw. My dog is making noise in the background. I don't know what's what anymore. I didn't make notes. See, like, last 3 books, I made, I annotated, I made extensive sticky notes, I still have them, this is the original, I still have them in my original copy. Nothing, nada. You know why? It's because at this point, Kingdom Keepers is me and I am Kingdom Keepers. Every word in these books becomes absorbed into my consciousness and I just know it, backwards and forwards. With that said, allow me to read you a summary off of Wikipedia because I don't remember. See, in my videos, I don't really tend to give you a full summary. Kelsey of I Read Today is way better at doing that. And I think that attests to our different styles, which I think is a good thing because we should have different styles. So I don't really go into an in-depth synopsis. I just kind of highlight points, but you still need to know what the dang book is about. And in case you don't know what Kingdom Keepers is about, at this point, you should just go back and watch my other videos, honestly. But kids defending the Disney parks from characters come to life. They can become holograms at night. It's awesome. It's badass. Not really, except that there is a lot of DHIs going on in this one. I believe that either in the second one or the third one or both, there wasn't as much DHI. For all the time they spent building it up in the first book, you'd think it would be more important. But in this one, it's present at least. Okay, I do remember how it starts, and I was really entertained by how it started. We're starting at Disney Quest. If you don't know what Disney Quest is, it was their failed Dave & Buster's arcade. They put one in, I think, downtown Disney, which I think is now called Disney Springs. Again, Kelsey knows Disney better than I do. I watch a lot of Defunct Land, so I kind of know stuff from that. So Disney Quest lasted a couple years, and then it just completely flopped. Because at the time, I think video game consoles and online gaming were really starting to outshine physical arcades. It's a novelty now, people know what Dave & Buster's is, but you don't go there on a weekly basis. So they started Disney Quest, they go on this roller coaster simulator, something goes wrong, and it's going really fast and flipping them a bunch of different ways, and it's we're gonna die! They don't, because that would just be an unfortunate way to start the 4th book in your series, is with a main protagonist dying, especially one that we don't really like that much, Finn. But no, they don't die, they get close to it, and then they're just what happened? And then Charlene was the one that designed the roller coaster for them. So they're Charlene, did you do it? Charlene gets a lot of shade thrown on her this book. She's always suspected to be the traitor, and she never is. Actually, the only time that she is, quote unquote, is because she's put under a spell. But half the characters in this book get put under spells at different points. So she's not singled out. She's not the weak link. She just, for some reason, they always assume she's gonna be the one to break. So that's how that starts. But the cool part is that apparently the evil queen from Snow White and Cruella de Vil are spotted at Disney Quest. They're like the characters like come to life. So already it's better because we have new characters being introduced and ones that aren't lame. The strength of Kingdom Keepers 4, if you want to call it a strength, is that it actually introduced new Disney properties and made them part of the plot. But we'll get to those later because there were some things that were like, just because they included them doesn't mean they included them well. So we'll get to that. So after a Kim Possible phone mission from Wayne, he makes him go on this whole Kim Possible mission just so that he can tell them via code, someone's gonna stab you in the back. And it's just like, yeah, we already kind of know Charlene is like the suspect. But like all that shit for just, yeah, someone's gonna probably maybe betray you or something. Wayne is useless and he's like barely present in this book anyway. They have to bail his daughter out of jail. This scene is so like hilariously chaotic because they have to explain, because it's still written for middle schoolers, so they have to explain what like a bail bond is via Finn's mother, because it's like, oh, an adult has to be the one to bail them out of jail. So they go to the prison with Finn's mother and talk to Wanda, Wayne's daughter, and post bail for her. It's a very real thing that happens, but in the context of Kingdom Keepers, it just feels so not plausible. It's really hard to believe it. So Charlene is under a spell and she is crossed over like involuntarily by herself for some reason, and they go after her. And Philby, who apparently has the hots for Willa, even though like his way of like when you're inside his head, because it does kind of jump character perspectives, when you're inside his head, it's like oh, Willa's cute in like a Willa way. Hold on, let me just show you how he words this real quick. It was something he still didn't understand, but what it amounted to was he wanted to be around her, to know more about her, to spend time with her. She was smart, funny, and thoughtful. Maybe not drop dead pretty like Charlene, or the brooding kind of beauty like Amanda, but interesting looking. If a guy who was trying to flirt with me described me as interesting looking, I straight up walk away. Just be like, okay, yeah, bye. That's not a compliment. It's just like a really roundabout way of saying she's ugly, but she's pretty on the inside. And I just think that's like, she's on the cover. She's so cute. The freaking cover artist gave her more credit than, and it doesn't mean that every single female protagonist has to be pretty. And like, I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22, because if she's pretty, then we complain about how every single protagonist is pretty and the guys are always after the pretty girls. If she's not pretty, then we're mad about how the author describes her as ugly. Okay, but we could describe her as not being, conventionally beautiful without saying she was interesting looking. Literally almost any other adjective would have been better than that. So anyways, Philby has the hots for Willa. Everybody's all teenager and hormonal in these ones. Like, they're freshmen in high school. They were all kind of love triangling in the third book anyway. But in this one, the love triangle is full freaking 3 angles. It is full triangular. And it is mostly between Finn, Amanda, and Charlene. Why? Because Finn. But we're not getting into that, because what's important is that Philby kisses Charlene to wake her up from the spell, and it goes absolutely nowhere, because even if Willa finds out, she really doesn't like get offended over it. She's like, oh, Philby kissed Charlene? Oh god. Like, I don't know what it was supposed to accomplish, if anything, in terms of like character tension, but it really did nothing. So whatever. Anyways, and then Willa gets crossed over by herself. She's not under a spell though, but she gets to meet Ariel from The Little Mermaid. So for the first time, I think since these books started, we actually have a Disney hero, for lack of a better word, getting introduced to these characters and actually interacting with them with dialogue. And, I mean, Ariel's not completely out of character, but she's not completely in character either. I think the one interesting thing they did was that they kind of established, oh, you've been alive for a long time, at least since, like, the movie was created and the magic of the park brought her to life. But she still looks 16, but her dialogue kind of makes her sound older, which, like, makes you assume that, like, the characters are sentient and they kind of developed apart from their like original character in the movie. Basically, they're not supposed to be static. Because they've lived in the parks for so long, they kind of like maybe have developed their own personalities or something. I mean, I can get behind that like a little bit, but there's other things that I can't get behind. And that is when Judge Frollo gets introduced. So he's on the front cover. He is not the main antagonist. He literally comes in one scene and he's chasing Willa. Poor Willa, run away. You know how Hunchback of Notre Dame goes. He's on the cover and he's very recognizable. He's got a very iconic look. This is how he's described. I just want you to see this, because I had to do a double take. I had to reread it. I read it out loud just to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating. Then she spotted him, a man in a red velvet dinner jacket, beneath which was a frilly white shirt and a bizarrely large black bow tie, the tails of which disappeared into the velvet. His pants were 3/4 length, tied around the calf, and puffy on his upper legs, with hook and eye laced brown leather boots, spit polished to gleaming. He had long curly hair, a wig perhaps, beneath his exaggerated hat like those worn by the Three Musketeers. Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm thinking of that meme, the one, is this a Disney villain? Literally, the imagery is basically Captain Hook without the hook. Like, when you actually read it, it sounds like he's describing Captain Hook, but then it's like, this is definitely Judge Claude Frollo. And know what it made me realize? Pearson doesn't watch Disney. I mean, I think that was honestly obvious from the first book, just based on the number of little things that you're like, that's not in the movie. Like how out of character Maleficent is, like throughout the entire first 2 books. People that watch Disney, that grew up watching Disney, would know and recognize it because they're such iconic characters. And it really bothered me because it pulled you out of the story. It's one thing to have a character evolve because the mechanics of the park, them being brought alive by the park, changed their personality. It's one for them to be described as a completely different character than what they are. So that one just got me. I was just like, oh my God. This is brilliant. So what they figure out through many mostly confusing scenes is that these other Disney villains, robbed of their leaders, have finally sprung into action, and they are planning on breaking out Maleficent and Chernabog from prison because they're being held in prison by the Imagineers, who are feeling more and more like the Illuminati the further we get into this book, because they're a very mysterious secret society that's apparently behind the scenes doing things, because they mentioned oh yeah, the Imagineers never let that happen, but they do let things happen. There's even a suspicion at one point that the Imagineers might be evil or turn to the dark side or under a spell or something. I'm like, that would be a twist. I mean, I don't know how well it would go over, but the Imagineers being the actual masterminds behind everything. Now there's a finale I can get behind. Okay, well then that launches them into action. Jess or whatever the heck her name is, keeps getting these visions of Finn kissing somebody and it being a thing. We'll get to that later. Oh, no, we're here. So Jess keeps getting these visions about Finn kissing somebody and it being bad, I guess. So he kisses Amanda and puts her under the Sleeping Beauty spell, the Sleeping Beauty syndrome. And so a good chunk of the book, I think this launches us into the third act, maybe. It's almost like a side quest, honestly. But she's stuck in the Sleeping Beauty syndrome, and the only thing they have that's a clue is that the part of the incantation, that it was the evil queen that did it, part of the incantation she used was reverse the curse, or the curse in reverse or some shit. So they surmise through their just incredible critical thinking skills that means that because he kissed her to put her in the spell, which is the opposite of how Sleeping Beauty goes. Good on Pearson, by the way, for remembering that the kiss woke her up from the spell in the first place. That in order to get her out of the spell, they have to poke her with a splinter. And so a significant chunk of the last half of this book is dedicated to them going to the park and looking for spindles. It starts with them locating like 2 different spindles at different parts of the park. It's literally, this is like, I'm recognizing a pattern here because I'm getting ahead of myself, but every single one of these books follows the same exact structure. Overtakers threatening the park. Kingdom Keepers getting stuck in DHI form in Sleeping Beauty syndrome. And then Wayne giving them a cryptic message, and then them going on this wild goose hunt to find these artifacts that are ultimately the wrong artifacts. And then they have to go back to the drawing board and put their heads together and really think about it. And then somebody, usually Finn or Philby, figures out with their incredible Kingdom Keepers brains what they were missing the whole time, which was some arbitrary detail that you literally would never think of. And then they go back into the parks and they find another object, and that object is the right one. So in this case, they find 2 spindles and it doesn't work. Throughout this thing, they meet more characters, which is kind of cool. You get to meet Jafar, who Pearson calls the most ruthless or most evil Disney villain. The Kingdom Keepers are like, he kills people. I'm like, all of them kill people. Jafar isn't even like the most evil one. Like, yeah, he's bad. If you want to talk about Disney villains that just kill mercilessly, we meet Shan Yu, the leader of the Han army from Mulan, and he is not portrayed as like very intimidating, but I just rewatched Mulan and he is ruthless. He is a cold-blooded killer. Like, he just kills everybody. He's, that's his thing. That's his shtick. And there's other Disney villains that like are way more ruthless than Jafar. So I'm just throwing that out there. Just another piece of evidence in the case against Pearson knowing anything about Disney canon. It's fine. I just hope that the later books introduce new characters. Like, I'm pretty sure these ended like before Frozen, but I would just love and Elsa blasted her fire powers. I would die. That would make the whole series for me if he includes Elsa, but she has fire powers. Okay, moving on. So the spindles don't work. They go and literally poke her with it, which, as you recall, is not actually how it happens in the movie. So he's 0 for 1, at least, when it comes to actually knowing what happens in Disney movies. So they determined that the problem was that they weren't looking for a wheel. So they go to Tom Sawyer Land, where there's a water wheel. Now, if you'll recall, a spindle is a specific kind of wheel used for making yarn, I think. I know things. The pointy part is not on the wheel itself. It's the spindle. The little needly thing that you put the thread through. It's such a break in logic, but that is what breaks her from the curse. So good job, Pearson. You found a deus ex machina that is literally the dumbest thing you could possibly think of. Oh, I forgot to mention we also meet Mulan, and she's kind of cool. And the best part about her is when she rescues them from like Shan Yu during like the scene where they're first trying to find spindles. Like, they're going down the river, and she's like, we have to be careful of the security guard, Sam. I'm just like, oh, that's Sam. He's a bad son of a bitch, that's Sam. Like, it was just like, the way she said it was so dramatic. They do alert Sam, by the way, but they evade him by hiding under the canoe. So, good job. We also meet Minnie and Pluto. Minnie is silent. She doesn't speak. But it is established, which is something that they really should have set up earlier, that Mickey exists, but he's been missing. Why? We don't know, but all the like good Disney characters that they meet are like, we need a leader. There's this great scene at the end. I'm sorry, I'm going so out of order, I know, but honestly, to keep with my whole chaos energy theme here, I'm just gonna go with it because as things occur to me, it's the best way for me to structure this video, honestly. There's no better way to do this than just chaotically. There's a scene at the end where Ariel's like, we need a leader, and like they all kind of look at Finn, and Finn is just kind of like, me? And Ariel's like, no, not you, Mickey. And he's just like, oh, oops, like, of course, Mickey, of course, why would it be me? It's not like I'm the chosen one or anything. So we have more reluctant leader Finn in this one, but this time he really like embraces it. Like, he's like, I'm the leader, I'm the guy. Like, This is, yeah, the wheel scene takes place like kind of adjacent to the main action, which is they figure out that the villains are at this like secret Disney power plant that they use to like power the parks. Kind of a cool feature, you know, like kind of a smart setting. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course they would want control over the electricity. Like that makes sense because they want to shut down the electricity that also powers the jail so that they can break Maleficent and Chernabog out. So there's a big long scene of like some of the characters trying to mess with their plan there, and then there's other characters going after the water wheel. You bumped the camera! See? Chaos! It's pure chaos! She did bump the camera though. So of course, because this is Kingdom Keepers, they save the day. It mostly involves like a really weird scene where Finn like figures out where Wayne is, which is at the same jail that like Maleficent and Chernabog are at, but not because he's in prison, because he's trying to stay safe. So like Finn like really kind of rudely demands that Wanda take him to him. And then when they get there, he's like, I know what's gonna happen. They're gonna break her, blah, 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 blah. And Wayne's like, that's impossible. And then Finn keeps like being an asshole about it. And then finally like there's some kind of like power outage or something. And then they're like, oh shit, you were right. Haha, maybe you're not an idiot kid after all. But it was like, there was something about like their DHIs, like they were replacing their real selves with their DHIs. There's a lot of overtakers making DHIs of themselves and then using their DHIs to do other things while their real selves sleep. I thought the whole point of the DHIs originally was because the characters themselves were like technically not real, and it took them being also not real to like see them and fight them. But people can see the overtakers. They can see them. Like they can see their DHIs too. It like feels like a really unnecessary step, like extra step that doesn't make a whole lot of sense and just completely breaks any semblance of logic that this magic system had in the first place, which I feel like the only logic it had was accidental, and it was just me and my brain trying to like make a connection of some kind. So I don't know, the rules, there are no rules. It's anarchy. I don't know, man. I give up. I throw in the towel. I lay down the sword. I bow down to the might of Disney. It's funny because we literally have a joke when you're watching a Disney movie and it abides by Disney logic, because that's the thing. We'll just say like, just go with it. Don't question it. It's Disney logic. Like this is like that amped up to the nth degree. It's because at least Disney logic tries to contain itself within a pre-existing logical system. It just breaks from it to like be plot convenient on occasion. This just has no magic system established, so it can just go all over the place. It's incredibly effective at being irritating, that's for sure. So in the end, after they saved the day, Jess had this other vision, and it was kind of like, it wasn't super important, except there is this really like almost terrifying scene where the evil queen is literally torturing Willa, and it's just like, this poor girl, you know, she almost got drowned by Captain Hook Frollo. It's hard being the ugly one. Oh yeah, the evil queen's trying to torture her for information because Jess had this other vision of like this captain guy, and at the end it's revealed that's Captain Peter Roseman of the Disney Magic, a cruise ship. So guess where we're going next, baby? Disney Cruise Line! I am beyond thrilled. And you know that Ursula's gotta be involved because she's the sea witch and we're on the ocean. Disney Cruise! Yay, we'll be stuck in one location for the entire book. Whereas this one actually doesn't have a location. It bops around the various Disney parks. We actually spend the most time, I would say, in Epcot. I feel like there was way more mention of the Epcot ball than there was in the actual Kingdom Keepers book that took place in Epcot. But as you can see, we got the Mickey Mouse wizard hat, which is supposed to be Hollywood Studios. So maybe it was supposed to be technically Hollywood Studios, but honestly, I think we're almost in all the parks evenly, which, and if you count Disney Quest, you know, we're just all over the place. So What a fun ride. So now it's the hunt for Mickey Mouse, which really should have been like a driving force at the beginning, because there's obviously this overarching scheme by the Overtakers. They're planning something big. Every book has just had a little bitty piece, them trying to do something that's obviously leading up to something bigger. We don't know what that is yet, but it feels like Mickey Mouse missing should have been established from probably like book 1, because it would make sense as to why like the Overtakers are running amok in the first place. But now we've got like literally a Kingdom Hearts situation, which honestly, like, there's too many like parallels between Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Keepers. I would die for a Kingdom Hearts Kingdom Keepers crossover. If someone has done it, fan fiction or otherwise, I want to see it. These two franchises are birds of a feather because they both have a talent for inconsistency. The plots make no sense. See, I didn't play Kingdom Keepers, but I have watched the Barry was streaming Kingdom Keepers plot summary videos, which are absolutely brilliant and hilarious. So I know just how convoluted those plots are, and Kingdom Keepers fits right in. So, I have a proposition. Books 2 and 3 added almost nothing to the franchise. So I propose that these two be canon. This is book 2, because this honestly sets up all of the things that book 2 should have. Book 2 did nothing, almost nothing. And book 3, next to nothing. So I would sooner read this one again than 2 or 3. So I don't know what do you think, Kelsey? Let us make a petition to have these two be canon. 1, 2. If you just kind of knock off the end of the V, it's a 2 right there. I'm supposed to talk about what I like and dislike, but I feel like I've done that throughout. Let me fire through real quick. We'll start with what I dislike. I dislike how long it is. I dislike how unfaithful it is to character design and just the total lack of knowledge that Pearson has about Disney. It doesn't matter how much he knows about the inner workings of the park. You still notice when he doesn't know about Disney properties. I don't like the repetitive scenes. I don't like all the tech jargon that happens all the time that, like, I think even a tech person, if they read it, would be like, this makes no freaking sense. I don't like Finn because he's annoying. I don't like the whole like emphasis on looks. There's a character that's like a bully, and he's just the most stereotypical bully you can think of. Big and ugly. Oh my gosh, there's a scene where he's like under a spell. I didn't mention like the anti-Kingdom Keepers. I wish they would have called them that, but there are anti-Kingdom Keepers in this one that like the Overtakers like turn into DHIs. And one is this bully kid who's just big and fat and gross, and it's really emphasized to the nth degree, and it's just really not pleasant, you know, just like not cool. So he attacks Philby's mom. He like breaks into the house, tries to stop Philby from like doing Kingdom Keeper shit, and attacks Philby's mom, and Philby like fights back. Philby gets physical. I think Pearson's like, Philby's not just the nerd, he can fight too. But nobody else throws punches. He beats the guy up, and then he threatens, basically, at least I think, like this is how I interpreted it, he threatens to kill the kid's mother. Like straight up, like I understand he was being protective of his mother who was in danger, but holy shit, did that go from 0 to 60 in like 0.2 seconds. Philby, my man, take a chill pill. I mean, this guy is under a spell, you know. He's not aware of what he's doing, I guess, apparently. I don't know. At this point, who knows? Here's what I like. I like that there's actual characters, actual other Disney properties introduced, and that they have something to do with the plot, and that it's set up that there's a Mickey character, and that, you know, they're helping, and etc. I like, I feel like the dialogue was slightly less cringy, and the pacing was slightly better. I like the Evil Queen. She was like a more compelling antagonist than Maleficent and Chernabog combined. Like, she was actually kind of terrifying. I already mentioned the torture scene. Yeah, like she's scary. I like then I never have to read it again. But no, I actually was fairly entertained by this one. It did actually keep you reading in at least a minimal way. Compared to the other ones, it was way more, which is, again, not saying much, but just enough. So next, of course, we have Kingdom Keepers 5. Kingdom Keepers 5. And that ought to be a splash. You see what I did there? Just can't wait. Can't wait for the rest of them. Just so excited. So until next time, keep it weird and send help. I had a dream the other night that I was fighting evil Disney characters. I think I'm a DHI. I think I'm a Kingdom Keeper, and it's all thanks to these books.